building your perfect tech stack today. I've got amazing guys here, some of which I've known for quite some time and actually met in person, which was very refreshing back in the days. But really nice to see you here virtually today. And I'll let you introduce yourselves because I guess that's the best way to do it. And maybe we'll start with you, Eric.
Sure. Can you see me and am I online?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, great. So hi, everyone. Welcome and hi from Amsterdam. So yeah, my name is Eric, co-founder of Oki, originally from Sweden, married and have a kid of 2.5 years old. Oki is, for those of you who don't know it, an automated upselling platform. We are about 6-7 years old, serve a couple of thousand hotels across the world. And from the very, very early days, I became friends with Matt and Richard, and we kind of grew together all from way back when. So we go back a long time, and it is a real pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Eric. I remember seeing you at the very first Unfold when it wasn't Unfold, and your amazing storytelling. So I'm looking forward to this session.
Thank you.
Maybe Robin, you could go next from Impala.
Hi, Joseph. Thanks for hosting me. Hello, everybody. So I'm Robin from Impala. I'm the VP of Global Supply based in the southwest of Ireland. It's been a while since I've met anybody due to COVID, as Joseph said, so I'm looking forward to getting back on the road and hitting ITB in a few more shows in the new year. 20 years in hospitality, mainly on the distribution side. So I worked with Booking.com, Hostelworld, Airbnb for 5 years. I headed up supply there. And I joined Impala 4 months ago, in which time we've onboarded about 4,000 new hotels. And hopefully, if you're not using Impala, you will be by the end of this session.
Amazing. I love Impala. It's such a great concept. Really, really good. So if we go over to someone I haven't met before in physical form, Tobias Köhler.
Hey everybody, it's great to be here and see everybody, and I really hope to meet you personally very soon. Yeah, my name is Tobias Köhler. I'm from Big Mama Hotels, recently joined the young company, and what we're doing is stylish budget hotels and hostels, actually currently in Berlin and Leipzig, and we do have some big plans for the future. And yeah, that's basically why I joined from Ruby, where I built up Ruby Hotels for the last 6 years. And now I'm taking over the role here at Big Mama as Chief Commercial Officer, also taking care of the whole tech stack. And yeah, looking forward to the discussion.
That's great. Thank you, Tobias. I do love the concept of Big Mama Hotels. Really, really great concept. The next one on the list here, I've got Alex, and I'm really not going to be trying even to pronounce the name of the company. I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. And hi, everyone. I'm Alex. Inginigi is a boutique consulting company, and what we do, we help hotels and hotel groups in 2 main areas, scaling up. So most of our clients are actually young hotel companies that just secure the means to scale up and go international and add properties, but also with digital transformation. Every time we think about scale up, immediately we think about the customer journey and what it looks like internationally. And so that's what we do. And the company name will change a little bit. I can tell you that already in January. With a couple of partners, we developed automated processes, hyper automation for hotels, and so we'll make that available for hotel groups in the near future. So that's me.
Amazing. Thanks for the intro, Alex. And last but by no means least, Dave from OTA Insight.
Hi, Joseph. Thanks a lot. I'm Dave Collier. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at OTA Insight. Been with the company about 3 years, formerly as our General Manager of the Americas. And I'm out of Denver, Colorado, but currently in our London office. And I've been scrambling all day to find a place with good lighting, but have failed. So I apologize if I'm a bit of a shadow in this call. But for those of you that don't know, OTA Insight, we're a BI and data intelligence platform. And we really, try to help hotelers make smarter marketing, revenue, and distribution decisions. We work currently with about 55,000 hotels globally, and very excited to be here today. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Dave. You should have called us. We're in Southwark today, so I'm in the office today as well. So we could have done it together.
That would have been nice. Hindsight's 2020 now.
Excellent. So thank you guys for the great introductions. Technology stacks are my passion. I've always tried to either hack it together back in the days and try and make old-fashioned systems work. But with the emergence of open APIs, and obviously I will big up Mews here as one of the first property management systems to have an open API to enable all of these amazing partners that we have today to build without a commercial or a contractual barrier. So I've always been an advocate for tech stack, and every industry needs to have one. It's not just hospitality. But obviously, we're in that space, and that's what we're going to focus on today. And we have a couple of themes to go through, and you have quite some time to go through them. So first of all, it's about building the right tech stack. So how to maximize your potential with the right tools, and where do you start? And that's a really difficult question for a lot of hoteliers. So if I start with the hotelier here in the group, Tobias, what do you say to this?
Well, yeah, hoteliers themselves, and I count myself to them, are not very experienced in building tech stacks. What we take care of are people and taking care of our guests. However, we learned over the last 10 to 15 years that without the technology, we would be nowhere. And we need it. And especially now during the last 2 years, even the last hotelier realized there is necessity to build your tech stack. And from my perspective, it is all about knowing who you are and who you want to serve and what your brand or what your what you want to look like. Who do you serve? Are you a budget hotel with very little people on the front line, or not little people, but not many people in the hotel maybe, but or are you a 5-star hotel where people expect you to serve you personally? And that's where you have to think about who you are and where you want to go. So it's all about this strategic setup for yourself. From my perspective, that's where you need to know who you are, the brand you are, and where you want to go with it. It's the one thing to cater only one hotel, and it's easy to find maybe a PMS that can handle one hotel. But if you're thinking for the next into the future for the next 5 to 10 years maybe, and you have some growth plans, it makes sense to think about how do you want to scale. Is there some solution out there that makes it easy for you to add new properties where you can maybe add the things on the top and dribble it down to the properties? Who knows? That's things that you need to talk about also with your vendors, and with all those vendors now in this room as well. It's not easy from a hotelier's perspective, I can tell you that. We get calls every day from everyone, and it's sometimes not easy to keep your mind straight. And that's why I always tell people who ask me, where would you start? Know who you are. Then nobody can tell you where you want to go. And sometimes it helps, yes, to discuss this, and maybe it helps to discuss this with other companies that are in the same field and maybe in the same category. However, know who you are.
Amazing, thank you. I guess, it is important to really realize operationally what you're trying to achieve before you start throwing tools and systems at the problems. So really well put. Eric, do you have a follow-up on this?
Yeah, I can maybe take it from a vendor's perspective then, because it's like Tobias said, from a hotel's perspective, know who you are. From a vendor's perspective, there's nothing that is as pleasing as having a sales call with a really educated buyer, someone who really knows what they want to do, what they want to achieve. And then you can basically look together, are we the right solution, or how can we tweak our solution in order to fit the needs that you have today and potentially in the future. I think if I were a hotelier, I would look at realizing that the staffing issue is going to prevail, and skeleton teams are here to stay, I think. So automation would be very key for me. Then I would probably look at what is the guest experience that I would like to have digitally and offline in the hotel. How can, coming from the upsell world, I'm always thinking about how can you generate transactions and revenue through a great guest experience, but also having the right tools in order to make it easy on operations to fulfill the digital promise you do throughout the guest journey. And one thing I think we maybe talk too little about, if we don't bring it up ourselves as vendor, is the fabulous customer success that vendors can have to support hotels in everything that they do. I think it's really critical. It's a white glove industry, and no matter how any of our investors would love to see us scale and not having to have any employees, we need to help our hotels and hold them by the hand and show them these are what other similar hotels are doing, and this is what works and this is what doesn't. So customer success, I think, is a really critical point. And lastly, what Tobias said, it's not only about where you are today, but where you want to be. I think a really interesting conversation we have sometimes with, or nowadays more actually, is we share our vision. What is our vision about the industry? Where do we want to play an important role in the future? We started doing a very exciting thing with customers lately, which is basically like a customer journey mapping. So we look at all of the touch points across the customer journey, and we map out where are we active today and where could we be active in the future. And then we discuss kind of, okay, here's our vision. On this touch point, we're looking at doing this and this. Would that play into needs that you have? So also from a hotelier's perspective, reach out to the founders or the decision makers within the tech companies and try to get a glimpse into what is their vision, because it's not only the company you're teaming up with today, but it should also be a long-term partnership, in my opinion. That's always the most successful from both ends.
Great. And I guess that goes both ways, right? So you also want to know what the vision of your future customer is. So you know where to kind of step in and help, and where it aligns with your vision as well, to make the real success out of it.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, some of these things have been accelerated over the past 18 months now. We say few, but it's been 18 months. Maybe Dave, you could come in here and tell us about, you know, the importance of what was before COVID, what was after, and how the mindset kind of changed.
Yeah, I think, you know, before COVID, obviously the hospitality industry had been on a pretty good run for years. And, you know, as a result, there were probably, you know, a bit of a mindset tool that the tools they were using were kind of good enough, right? Because the business performance was there. So I think, you know, whether we want to look at it as post-COVID or kind of living with COVID world, you know, we've kind of necessitated the need to go back and revisit some of those technologies, whether it be from a cost perspective or a performance perspective. But I think it's, you know, the most important thing to do is really take a look at, you know, are you getting what you need out of the tools you have today, right? And if you have some blind spots, this is a perfect time to go revisit that tech stack and take a look at, you know, what other opportunities exist. You know, there's some really innovative companies out in the marketplace right now. Even in, you know, recent years, we've seen a lot of money move into the tech space, you know, for hospitality tech, which is just driving a lot of innovation. So, you know, the current market conditions are kind of a nice forcing function to, you know, go back and rework some of those, you know, the systems or access to data that are going to allow you to be more competitive in the marketplace. And I think, you know, to echo some of Eric's, you know, themes, I think there's, you know, the UI UX matters, you know, as teams are doing more with less, it's really important that it's, you know, tech is intuitive, it's easy to learn, it's easy to train internally, or that the vendors have the ability to support and train users and get them up to speed quickly, because, you know, the markets are dynamic right now and opportunities are very short-lived. So the ability to spot them and take advantage of them are really important. A couple other themes, I think, you know, data quality and support matter. Obviously, we're trying to make decisions, maybe not quite real time, but near real time. Booking windows are short. So, you know, again, the ability to spot opportunity and capture guests is, you know, is very finite. So we want to make sure that the data can really drive good decisions for you. And I think there's a human component too, as Eric also mentioned, around support. You know, it's a great opportunity. You know, I know we think this way, and I know some of our other tech partners do as well, to bring domain knowledge into the business. So folks that have actually worked within the hotels being behind that support line. So there's the right empathy to the hotelier on the other side, who again is trying to do more with less and solve problems that they haven't seen in the past. So I think, that's some of the themes that we're seeing right now, and, and we think they'll continue for a period, but, the pace of innovation, I think, will be here for a long time, because I think hoteliers will see how technology can help streamline operations and make, allow for better decision-making and just create more opportunity for them as the industry roars back.
Okay, great. Thank you. I guess when you're able to choose different vendors, it's sometimes daunting because you're having to deal with lots of different partners rather than just one system. But I guess it gives you also the flexibility and the freedom to be able to try things out, move with the technology, because everything's moves so fast that actually, before you know it, there's something else on the market that you could try out, and so on. So over to you, Alex. How do you advise hoteliers to start with new technology and the right tools? What's the kind of first steps that you would advise?
Well, I think so much was said already, and I really echo what Tobias said earlier. It starts with a vision, and we are on shaky grounds a little bit at the moment, right? We are hopefully coming out of a major crisis. It seems to be never ending. We know things are changing. Change is really the topic or the context we are all in at the moment. And having a strong vision and being able to go out and say, this is what I want to build for my guests. This is what I want to build for my employees. I think it's really, really important. I also agree with what was said earlier. It's a two-way, it's multi-ways conversation. Hoteliers need to know what they want to build, but they also can get information and be better informed through the software supply in the industry, but also looking outside the industry. And I think our industry in general doesn't do that enough. However, I think it's changing. I see more and more CIO, CTOs coming into the industry that are not from the industry. Their previous job is not director of IT at some hotels. They come from different places, and that's a very healthy thing to do. Having those things clear in mind certainly help a lot. Another thing I want to say, also we are on the theme of we're on shaky grounds, and Eric briefly mentioned it, but I think it's super important. How does the industry continue to attract talents in? There is a huge crunch on hiring. It's getting more and more difficult to get people to work with us, and especially in the back of house area, things of the reservation team, the contact center team. What kind of technology do we put in place so their life is as simple as possible and they don't walk out the door 6 weeks after joining because this is not what they want to do. We are a bit in an employee market, sorry, and we as employers, we need to be very good at that, very good at addressing the new needs of the employees. And I think technology is right in the center of it, be it in the UI, in the UX, payments, deconsolidated payments, and this kind of stuff should be a thing in the past. It should be super quick for people to issue a refund and things like that, and automate it as much as possible. The last thing I'd like to say is we sometimes make a cliche of being agile, but being agile with a vision is a very healthy way to do it, because short-term, small steps can be taken, and once in a while you take one big step with your tech stack, and that's perfectly okay. The days of doing once every 5 years the perfect stack and then not doing anything for 5 years, this is over. It's never worked. Let's not try to make it work again. It's investing in IT, it's a little bit like gardening, if you like. You invest a little bit every day in improving it, and over the years you get compound results, and it looks so much nicer 5 years later, just because of the sum of every investment that was made over time. So I think all of those are really, really crucial points to take, even before talking about what technology to put, what kind of APIs, what kind of PMS, ERP, or whatever. Right?
That's a great point, really, Alex. I really like the analogy of the garden. It's not a one-time thing that you can then just leave to it. You know, you want to add new things to it. You want to react to how it changes, how the environment changes. You know, if there's too much sun, you put more water on it, etc., etc. So that I really enjoyed that analogy. And obviously, you also mentioned about employees and the disruption that's been brought on in the industry as well, being able to kind of react to, you know, it being an employees market ultimately, and you know, we need to make sure that we design and build systems that are easy to use, that people that come to hospitality can actually do what they came for, to be hospitable to other people and welcome them to the buildings that they are entering. Maybe Robin, we've touched on disruption and, you know, different channels and how the industry has evolved over the past 18 months as well. Maybe you could take your point across.
Yeah, thanks, Joseph. I think if I go back to 1997, which was the last time I had a really, really bad hangover, fortunately, I remember stumbling out of a stadium in Dublin after an Ireland rugby match against New Zealand and walking down the street and looking for a hotel. And I was 17 years of age. And you'd walk into a hotel and you'd say, hey, how much is the room for tonight? And they'd tell you the price. So if they didn't like the look of you because you were drunk, they might say no. And hotels had total control of their inventory. And if you fast forward to now, what's happened in the last 20 years is at the start of the century, Booking.com came along as one of the major OTAs that's in existence today. And they said to hotels, we can distribute your rooms online. And this was fantastic. It was like for hotels, it gave them instant access to, you know, 191 countries, 40 languages, kind of a cost-effective business at around 12-13% to process a booking. And it's almost like hoteliers took a drug at that point where they thought this is great. And like many drugs, they're great at the start. And then by the time that you realize you're hooked on the drug, you can't get off it because you're so dependent. And there's actually no alternative to the drug. In that time, I joined Airbnb after about maybe 7 years ago, because I realized that hotels had come to the point where you had a box with a picture, a few lines of description, you're selling your room at 15-20%, and most of your traffic is coming from the big OTAs. You're trying to build your direct business, but that's super challenging because the tech stack is tough and the world is moving very fast and social media is coming and it's hard to keep up, and meta search is also taking off. And Airbnb came along and we tried to disrupt that industry by saying, you know, creating an alternative to hotels. And when I look at disruption in general, companies like Tesla or Stripe or Airbnb, they don't slightly refine what's being done. They create something totally radically different. So I think if I look at a hotelier now, and I'm on this call, and it's not that I feel sorry for hoteliers, I think it's a massive challenge anyway to keep your tech stack up to date. And it's going to get more difficult. It's not easier. It's going to get more complex. And like the analogy from Alex of like, you'll have multiple crops in the garden, the weather changes a lot, crops die, they grow faster. So it's really challenging. So I have empathy for hotel managers. I think it's really important at this point in time that you probably have your channel manager, which connects you to the major OTAs. You'll probably have a PMS for managing your in-house reservations. You'll probably have your own direct website, and you'll have some sort of social media marketing campaign. You're trying to keep up on that side. But like, the world is changing so fast that there's talks of the internet being disrupted by crypto and blockchain. There's talks of charging for a room by the hour. There's talks of like this merging line between service apartment hotels and alternative accommodation. So what I would say from my expertise is that it's really important as you look towards 2022 is like your goal really ultimately is to fill your rooms, and what tech can help you outside of the stack that you have at the moment, analyzing that, understanding the value of it and maximizing it. Is there any other tech that can help you reach the market, which is changing rapidly? And when I say changing rapidly, there's multiple disruptors coming who are trying to disrupt what Booking.com, Expedia, Ctrip, and the OTA giants are doing. And it's important that you have a connection to an open distribution network that can connect you to those. It's also important when you make those bets that it's hard to front run bets. It's hard to know when you connect to a new tech provider if you have upfront costs or upfront work and you don't know what the return on the investment is. That's very, very difficult. So, you know, I'm very passionate about helping hotels. And in Impala, what we're trying to do is we're saying there's a zero cost to integration. We do all the work on our side, and it's just a question of let the bookings roll in. And it's really important to have a one-stop shop to connect you to all of those disruptions that are coming and all of those other websites that you're not connected to at the moment that can drive value. And the last point I would make is that meta search is big now. it's getting bigger. And a lot of hoteliers that I meet, and I meet thousands of them every calendar year, their view towards meta search is, well, it's super difficult to connect to meta search directly, run a CPC model, manage the clicks, manage the cost. And I already have the OTAs there. So, I'll just get the bookings through booking.com or Expedia or one of those channels. That's okay, but the world is changing. And Meta, you should be able to list on a meta search via a company like Impala for less than 15%, 13, 14%, get bookings direct from that channel and compete with the OTAs for direct business on that channel. And if you're not doing that, you need to do that as soon as possible, because having a direct booking strategy without having direct bookings on a meta search channel, which is exploding in growth, is a real miss. So here to help, here to answer questions. When it comes to all of the stuff that the guys have mentioned about in operations hotels, there's people far more qualified than me on that. But my view on tech is that it's complex, it's difficult for hoteliers to understand, it's expensive, it requires a lot of work, and it needs major disrupting for hoteliers to get the best from it.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. I guess it's really important, the speed that you mentioned, the speed by which things are changing, and not only in technology, as I mentioned before, and we've all kind of touched upon, but also the new creations of new channels, new booking opportunities, new trends coming up. I also can't quite believe that I wish my last hangover was in 1997. That would be really good. Wishful thinking there. I'm just going to circle back a little bit, because I think we can touch more on the enterprise versus the independence theme here. And maybe, Tobias, I can move again to you, because obviously you have like almost independent hotels there. They kind of work on their own, but they are part of a concept, part of a enterprise, part of the Big Mama family. So how do you control which kind of tech stack goes in? Do you let your hotels choose some independently? How does it work there?
Well, from our perspective, the hotel stack needs to be centrally steered. So in order to be able to have the brand under control, basically, and to deliver the same customer experience in each hotel, kind of, and also to scale it easier. On the other hand, this also frees a lot of work or time for the people on site to actually take care of the guests. We take a lot of measures to automate as much as possible, because part of the Big Mama concept is that people actually feel at home, and that they're not welcomed like a robot, that they just easily can enter those stupid addresses themselves beforehand whenever they have time. There's no need to have somebody standing there and say, hi, what's your name? Where do you live? Blah, blah. And this is also part of what you mentioned before. I love the analogy of the garden, by the way. This is really beautiful. And as you mentioned also, Robin, it is getting much more complex, and it needs an army of people having the eyes open to look for what's possible and to get inspired. And from my perspective, there are two sides that need to take care of that. One is the leadership of the company itself needs to live for this. They need to be the most thriving person there and tell everybody to and share their information, to just tell them, hey, I saw this, I don't know, at an airline, or maybe at some other industry, and this is cool, let's try this. And to actually empower people to try things out. Just as an example, we recently rolled out Microsoft Teams for Big Mama, and people started playing around, and that was so great to see, and so beautiful what they experienced by themselves without any training or anything. And they already built their own checklists and recurring things without having to tell them about it. And that's where we need to link on. Identify those people who are kind of early adopters, identify them and tell them, hey, that's a great job. Maybe give them some kind of a job enrichment and educate them where to look things up maybe, and give them the chance to also try things out. I mean, Mews is a good example. You can easily connect other suppliers and just try them without any cost. So I tell them to try things out and maybe build a tree or build or plant a seed somewhere, and maybe something grows out of it and we can make a nice dinner at some point with it. And that's education and empowerment. Amazing. For me, the main points.
Great, and I guess that goes also in line with what Eric, you were saying with the vision. You know, as a company, there you have a vision, you align it with your customers and your vendors. We have about 5 minutes left on this theme, but Eric, I wanted to just touch upon the enterprise versus the independence approach, because I remember us talking quite a while ago about you know, that struggle. How much can you give your customers kind of freedom, but they also want to do templating and so on. Maybe you could take that from here.
Sure, I will plan it into upselling them, which of course is our specialty. Like, we started working with independents, and on the point when we started working with enterprise customers, it became a real struggle because every hotel had one dashboard they had to log into, right? So if we onboarded a chain of 200 hotels, they would have to log into 200 dashboards to do something. So there's an immediate scaling issue, of course, which is pretty evident when you compare a enterprise and an independent. But now, like many years later, there are also a lot of similarities, I would say. I would say a lot of independents have a good idea around what do their guests want, so they are proactively able to offer that in terms of upsells at the right time across the guest journey. A lot of independents are using a revenue management strategy, which of course is super linked to upselling. So you can do dynamic pricing on various options and make sure you generate as much revenue as possible. But the main difference, if I look at independent versus chain, is maybe very obvious, but a chain has things take way longer, way more people that have opinions. And I think it's about how can you create technology that scales within this situation where you have multiple stakeholder input that needs to result in a quick output, so to speak. Because the most successful upsell programs, in my opinion, are the ones where you can have a fabulous idea around, okay, we're going to upsell this amazing dinner to this certain segment, and you're able to implement it very, very quickly and scale it. And that's the key thing, I think. When we build towards independence and chains, it's like independents need to learn from what other successful independents are doing, and chains need to learn from what the hotels within their chain, but also other chains are doing. But the cool thing about having both enterprise and independence is that very often independents can take much more freedom in terms of what they're offering. We have these crazy examples, right, from the early days of Oki, hotels selling goldfish to their guests and putting them in the room, upselling like joint rolling workshops and all these crazy ideas. That's not necessarily revenue generating, but super mind blowing in terms of guest experience. And some of these things worked out super well, and then the chains are feeling comfortable to take it in and implement that. Nice. So there's a lot to be said about this.
Perfect. I guess it also tells a story, right? It's not always just about the revenue. It's about the story that you can tell as a enterprise and a concept as well there.
Yeah, definitely. It's very much, we believe that upselling is like just as much guest experience and storytelling that then results in revenue. It's not necessarily looking at how do you hardcore drive revenue and profitability first. It's the other way around.
Great. So let's move on to our next theme, and why data matters, and personalizing and owning your guest journey, and how can that be turned into revenue. And I would be a fool if I didn't start a talk about data with OTA Insight. So Dave, maybe I can take your point on this.
Yeah, absolutely. That is our space in an area we're very passionate about, and I think now more than ever, the paradigm shifting. Obviously, for years, obviously, it was around taking historic data and using that for setting budgets and forecasts, and then driving the business forward. But now, obviously, business is coming back, but if the segment in the mix is obviously changed. There's plenty of pent up demand for leisure, but we're feeling it the last few weeks as restrictions change and there's uncertainty in the market. A lot of people are deferring purchasing decisions to last minute, right? So it's really difficult to see that historic pickup in pace. Business travel's coming back, but it's really hard to understand what corporate policy or budget restrictions exist there. Same with conferences. Most have hybrid flavor to them, so it's really hard to understand how many people are going to be virtual and how many will be on site. So it's just that those historic demand patterns just don't really help. So we think it's vital to be able to have forward-looking data at your disposal to test some of your hypotheses, see where demand's coming from, see where which markets might be searching on your property. Again, we already mentioned booking windows are short, so that data not only has to be available, but it has to be easy to analyze and put to work in order to make decisions and put bets out there to try to win share. So that actionability, I think, is something that it's been mentioned and by everyone on this panel. How do you take the age of big data is here, but how do you boil it down to make easy decisions, particularly with skeleton staffs and everyone's being asked to do more with less. On the corporate level, we're seeing a lot of the revenue for hire programs seeing their portfolios double, in some cases even triple, in terms of how many hotels they have to look after. So that makes decision making difficult, and they obviously have less time to devote to each property. So getting those insights quickly are critical. And again, that forward-looking data matched up against what you can see in the rearview mirror for the shorter periods, last month or last quarter, are really important to try to predict where the business is going. And then at the independent level as well, where more of a generalist model, right, where you're wearing a lot of hats. Obviously there is more active revenue management, but it's being done as an add-on to other responsibilities as well. So again, being able to look forward a little bit and make some bets based on just what you're seeing in your own market, or just intuitively what you think might happen. If you can validate some of those bets, you'll have more confidence in setting revenue strategy moving forward.
Amazing. Yeah, I think the key point here is the looking forward and looking into the now as well, because it's such a volatile market. There were several instances that I went to events a few months ago, and I was one of 6 people sitting in a 50 spaces room and watching this presentation. And it's such a shame, obviously, because it's a shame for the organizers, but this is the world we live in right now, where we cannot really predict too far into the future, and we cannot really look at last year or the year before as indicators of what business we should be expecting.
That's right. And we're fortunate as a company to be able to hold our team gathering. We did it regionally, but we really had to wait, till the final 3 weeks before the event to make kind of the go, no go decision. And, and that has a knock-on effect on, the hotel partner we chose for that. It really had them scrambling to put together, and they did a great event for us. But it's just kind of a microcosm. You can feel it in our day-to-day life, what, the whole universe is going through in terms of decision-making in very short order. So the more we can do, I think, to, bring data to light, and, again, as we mentioned, that's integrated with open APIs, it will help them consolidate, our hotel partners consolidate data quickly and use these different data points to make the best decisions for their business. As we mentioned, each business is a little bit different. They're trying to attract, different groups of travelers. And now more than ever, you can't predict the habits of the traveler anymore. You kind of have to influence the habits. So, we have a big challenge ahead, but I think, we're on the right track.
Great, thank you. And Alex, I guess it's important to look at why data matters, but also what data you look into.
Yes, of course, and I think the industry, to say something really positive about it, really learned about the guest journey up front, the sales funnel, the channels, and things like that. I remember the days where channel managers were kind of a new thing, and that's really I do think there is some maturity around it. And I agree with Dave that maturity is kind of backward looking, I mean, past forward looking, rather than predicting and doing a bit more forward thinking and anticipating. It's getting more and more difficult to do that. But as this maturity grows over time, maybe it's also time to look at slightly different journeys. For example, a data element of data that might matter is the building journey. So the building in itself, it's something we use as hoteliers all the time, and it has its own journeys. And to take a really simple example, most hoteliers, I will bet $20 or $100 or whatever, do not know if their out of order room and out of service room actually has a direct impact on their revenue. How many times do they run out of order room that they cannot sell, and how does that change their rate strategy? I don't think many people actually do that, but this might be an information, an insight that will matter because there is revenue behind that. And if you treat it better and better and you learn how to manage these kind of things in your building, that's not a guest journey, that's a building journey, you can get more out of it. Equally from the employee side, how many man hours are wasted every day on clicking and checking if an OTA booking has a valid credit card or if it's not duplicate or this kind of stuff. Those are also insights and metrics that are worth investing into, because then immediately we can decide, hey, is there a tech stack conversation there? Can we automate it? Is there a tool to fix it for us? Do we need to implement RPA? Whatever that might be, to elevate ultimately the guest journey and drive a little bit more revenue. That is just left on the table. It's even not asking more money for the same thing. It's just money that goes down the drain and nobody knows about it. So I think those are really important things to also think about and enlarge the data conversation beyond the sales funnels.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess sometimes this kind of conversation, well, I guess more in the past than today, goes around, the full-time employee and the reduction of those because of automation. But it's really not about that, right? It's about actually giving more time to your current employees and making sure that they can do the job that they came in to do ultimately. And obviously now we have more staff shortages in hospitality, and it should kind of help alleviate some of the pressures in the different departments.
Yeah, of course, and we see more and more jurisdictions or area experimenting with 4 days work week. Trying to do a little thought experiment here is what happens if the EU or a major economy in the EU or the UK tomorrow decides that 4 days work week is for everybody. The impact on our industry will be absolutely gigantic, and we will not find the people that we already cannot find. So what efficiencies can we build to ensure well-being of our colleagues, eventually getting ahead and giving them back that time as early as possible, and making sure that the guest journey does not diminish because of that, right? Our job is not to say, let's reduce function in the hotels because we don't have people. Our job is to say, let's elevate the guest journey and somehow do it so smart that we need less people and those people are happier. And I think that's a really interesting challenge for us on the supply side of the industry.
Great. And Robin, if I can come to you, with Impala, obviously this huge sudden growth, you touch a lot of data there, but I believe it's not just data, receiving reservations and dealing with that type of data. It's also content data, ARI data, and so on. So obviously there's a lot of touch point that you have as a company as well.
Yeah, that's true. I think just to circle back, so I think that data is really important, but it's also really difficult when you have lots of data to make it impactful and meaningful. And I think data has never aged as badly as it has in the last 18 months. I've sat in many boardrooms for many hotel chains, and planning has been made, and then 2 weeks later there's a lockdown. And it's put huge pressure on to probably people dialed into this call on how to do revenue management correctly. So I can't imagine your pain. I'm glad it's not my pain. But I think it's more important than ever to use companies and to give Dave a plug in OTA Insights. Like, data is more important than ever because it's changing so much. In terms of trends, it's really important to understand that, the sustainable green trend is massive, right? So a lot of customers who will travel in the next year are looking for sustainability. And, so I've stayed in a lot of hotels, even in the last couple of weeks, that are like, if you don't wash the towels, you get a free cocktail in the bar. There's little signals all over the hotel giving you little rewards, which are cost effective for them, I believe, by giving things back. And then the second point is work from home in remote companies is massive, right? All the Silicon Valley companies, all the big tech Web 2.0 companies are allowing people to work from home. And this is creating a length of stay, which is longer, and a booking window is longer, and a longer lifetime value for those customers, your TrevPAR when they're in the hotel. So I think on the upselling, it's really important to position your hotel as a place that's, sustainable, green, you can work there. They're really important trends. And in Impala, one of the keys for us at the moment is that we've seen so many room sellers connect to Impala that are trying to disrupt, as I mentioned, the big OTAs. It's important that hotels have the ability to pick the sellers they want to work with, and at different times negotiate different deals with those sellers, whether behind closed doors or B2C rates, and also plug into Meta, like I mentioned. And they have to be very flexible in picking and choosing, using a system that doesn't actually rely on a channel manager, that doesn't actually cost anything, and that they don't have to, just a click of a button, they can connect to a new seller. So I think just data is important. Focus on the data that matters. Use the companies that are available to you to help you with your revenue management. And again, try and connect it to new channels that have a low lift and can produce a return for your business next year.
Amazing. Thank you. And if I can circle back to you, Tobias, Big Mama, does it mean big data?
I wish. Unfortunately, we are really occupied at the moment with the whole situation. So you can imagine that, yes, I would love to look at beautiful dashboards, and I do sometimes, but there's just no time to dig deeper. So what I would love to have is to have a easy recommendation from our suppliers to say, hey, people or hoteliers in the same situation, in the same city, destination, do this and that. Maybe that's something for you. So that's just some food for thought for you guys to look into, maybe. But yeah, this is one thing. And the other thing is, in general, hoteliers, or if I look at projects that are being run at some hotels or hotel chains, it's mostly more about vanity than actually business. So I'd like to divide between business value and vanity value. That's where the HIPPO, so the highest earning person in the room, or the highest paid person in the room opinion, decides, yes, we need an app, for example, because it's shiny, it's beautiful, everybody has it on its phone. But looking at the data, nobody will download it, maybe 3 to 5%. And that's just a waste of money, waste of time, waste of everything. So what I like to encourage hoteliers to look into projects from a business value perspective, to find some KPIs at the beginning of the project, to really drill down to what are the points that we want to reach with it. Not just, yeah, okay, I got a call from Eric, he told me about upselling, let's do this. No, just maybe think about what you really want to reach with it. And then we talked about agile methods before. Maybe then circle back, did we reach those goals? Did we, what other things did we reach with it? And then question what we actually did, and maybe build on that experience. So yeah, I can only encourage people to more look at it from a business value perspective. And this, again, if we circle back to the strategic part of it, plays a big role in where you want to be, what's your vision, and what is actually your business, and how can you reach those goals.
Amazing. I guess it also aligns a little bit with product management techniques. You want to try out things as early as possible to actually find out whether it's worth doing it. And I guess if you have that mindset of being able to be data-driven, and then you can say, hey, look, we've tried this out and no one downloaded the app, just like I told you so. And it's much more powerful in that way when you're in the room explaining those types of decisions. And I guess that helps with a partner like Mews, I would say, to be able to try things out. And we have so many partners on the marketplace that allowed us to list them for 30-day trials and be able to kind of allow hotels and hoteliers to test it without any major commitment, which is great. And that gives you that data that you need to drive your decisions forward, whether you will invest into that type of technology or not. And I guess, Eric, with regards to data-driven decisions, you also, obviously, you're building a product, but also you have a lot of kind of input in the hospitality space there.
Yeah, super passionate about the customer journey and personalizing it. Maybe adding to one thing I think we haven't touched upon, which might be obvious for everyone on the call, but it's like if you don't drive direct bookings or from certain OTAs or certain channels, you have very little data on the guest and you have no way of owning that guest journey. So yeah, like what Alex said, use Impala to try to drive direct bookings through one channel or another. Hugely important if you want to have a fair chance, from the get-go to actually have the data to do it. And then indeed, it's about what Tobias said, looking at what is it that you want to achieve across the guest journey. We have so many different types of examples here. Like I know that Mews is planting one tree for every attendee, right, for this event. We also work with, we have a partnership with the same provider, and many hotels are then saying you can turn down housekeeping and you will plant a tree before arrival. So it's a kind of upsell where you reduce costs and it's a win-win. But we also have hoteliers that are now going the complete other direction, where they want to compete on very low naked rates, but they look at the total revenue spend of the guests. So they actually say you pay for the room, but you pay for housekeeping. So it's not even included. And it's like going the complete other direction. And you can do anything with upselling if the system is flexible enough and if you know what you want to achieve. In the end, I think it's also very important, especially for us, because we're a niche solution. We thrive on partnerships and integrations. If I was a hotelier, it's very important that my different tech partners are integrated to one another so that the data doesn't get stuck in one of the systems. And just wanted to share, we have a partnership, for example, with OTA Insights, so with Dave on the call, where what they do, they send us the best available rates for the rooms. So previously, upselling for room upgrades were usually always static. The price would always be 50 euros or 35 euros from one type to another. But with the integration, we get dynamic bar rates. So all of a sudden, these rates are now dynamic. And hotels that started to use this now see an uplift of 35% in the sold supplement pricing without doing anything, right? It's just an integration between two partners. So it's super exciting what can be done and innovation that we see going forward with using data the right way.
100%. And I guess also when talking about data, what I wanted to add is if you as a hotelier can see that electronically you missed the guest journey, there is a gap, and there should be a opportunity for you to start collecting the footprints of that guest to be able to make a better assumptions about their behavior, about how they connect with you, what they buy from upgrades, including in-house buying. I mean, this has been a really great conversation. Thank you guys for joining today. There's a lot of us on the call, and I could talk to you for a lot longer. I think, do we have some questions? We have some questions on Slido today. So if we go over to them. So first one, I'm just going to need to move my screen there. So we know tech teams are as important as the tech itself. What roles are you recommending that hoteliers invest in for their teams? And maybe if I go to Tobias first.
Sure. So yeah, we realized that technology isn't something easy for the most part of it, especially as it's getting more complex, as we all agreed upon before. And what I think is important to maybe even get people from outside of the industry, get people who have been working maybe at tech companies who have been project managers, who know how to lead an agile project, who know how to conduct the interviews with the people working with a software, or that they just, for example, shadow people in the reservation team to be able to find out what their issues are and what kind of processes they do. So people that, first of all, map the whole process of a hotel, really all of the processes, theoretically. I know it's a lot of work, but and people from tech are not the cheapest one to get, which I see as a big challenge. So, but maybe this is also something where hoteliers and tech providers can work together, as we need to learn from each other. And we will provide insight, for example. You can shadow us, and in turn, you learn a lot of how we actually work. Because I can imagine some of the tech people have never been standing behind a desk in a hotel. So some of the processes are totally new to them. And yes, I think learning from each other, if there is no resources available to hire people from tech or from, let's just say, project management with project management experience, it makes sense to learn from each other, or to invest in educating people from the inside to identify those people who are interested in bringing a software or a process forward, who recommend things. They tell you, hey, guys, I realized if you click there, it's only one click instead of three. Identify those and maybe send them to a training, maybe some agile methods, or maybe even to send them to a tech provider and tell them, hey, guys, do internship there with Mews, with OTA Insight, I don't know who, and maybe this is something we could learn from each other.
100%. I think this type of cross exposure is something that is so useful. The product team here at Mews took a trip to Amsterdam a few weeks back, standing behind the reception in certain hotels, you know, and you learned the art of empathy when you see the receptionist, you know, with a guest that's maybe a little bit more problematic, wanting a correction on their bill, or they want a fast checkout, or whatever it may be. And you feel that pressure that some of the hospitality staff are under in those certain circumstances. But yeah, cross exposure is definitely important. And Alex, if I may, with the same question, because of your obviously your background with Citizen M and also your consultancy, you know, do you have a point of view on this question?
Yes, and I think Tobias is absolutely right. I think he went over a little bit quickly on the agile bit and use project managers. I think product owners is really what's important, and a product in a hotel tech team is not necessarily a PMS or a hotel. It might be a group of them, and it might be the digital experience. That's maybe a product. If there is an app, if there is another outlet, that might be a second product owner. This way, it allows to bring new methodology. And I can tell you at Citizen, one of the best things we did for the tech team, I think, is to hire a Scrum Master, right? So better yet, we actually had somebody with high potential who was trained as a Scrum Master, and then starting reorganizing how the tech team is functioning. And then that allowed a lot more transparency for the end users, for the operators. But it also just a genuine feeling that things are being taken care of. We know where it is. Things are prioritized, and moving away from tech needs to do everything at the same time. The backlog is huge and we don't know where to start. Let's move away from that. Let's learn from agile methodologies, bring that in, and that's lead to a better organization. And those people don't need to come from hospitality. It's important they have partners to understand the processes and what it's like to be at the front desk, what it's like to be in reservations, etc., etc. But per se, to be a great product owner, you don't need to have hotel school background and know everything about hotels. You just need to be a great product owner, right? And I think those are really the talent to look for, and they are not easy to find. So we also going back to my previous thing, I sound like a broken record, but we need to make sure we attract those people with an industry that is actually attractive to work with. And that's really, really important. So I hope that answers the question.
No, 100%. Thank you so much. Really insightful. If you can move to the next question, that's for Robin. Can you connect more than one external software via Impala on the marketplace for one hotel?
You can, but I don't think it's necessary. So I'm not sure the context behind the question, but I think it's from Claudia. So Claudia, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn and I can answer any question you have there.
Excellent. Nice and quick. How much of successful revenue management do you think is actually a result of luck or other outcome biases? And maybe I'm a bit torn here where to start. Maybe OTA Insight, we can start there.
Sure. I mean, I think there probably is a little bit of luck these days, but I think more than that, I mean, particularly for everyone on the call on the tech side, will, in the kind of, particularly in the startup and scale up phases, know the saying, fail fast. And I think we're seeing a lot of our, revenue manager partners doing that, going out, they are, placing some bets or making decisions maybe they wouldn't have made in the past, but it's to learn what the market is giving them, right? And using data to drive some of those decisions. So at the end of the day, it could be a little bit of luck, or they may have, an outcome bias. But I think, we launched a product called Market Insight during the pandemic, and it was really, again, give that access to that top of the funnel data to really see, what source markets are searching, what length of stays are people looking for. And, we're really seeing that accelerate right now because revenue managers are trying to validate their decisions. They know their blind spots. They're looking for more data. So I think there is a little bit of, kind of stumbling through the dark, but it's a very small but talented group of people that are really trying to get their arms around a pretty big challenge. So I think they're using the right science, but it's taking experimentation to get there. So I think it'll stop being about luck, and it will start to be more around strategy moving forward, because again, everyone's trying to arm themselves with the right tools and data to be able to make better decisions and connect with the guests that they want to to bring into the hotel, or find new guest segments maybe that they didn't realize were viable in the past.
Okay, yeah. And I guess Eric, yes, sorry.
I was trying to add to what Dave was saying there is that, like, it's an interesting question, but luck is the preparation people fail to see. And revenue management has always been complex, but it's even more complex coming into 2022. So it's not luck for me. It's completely based on data. And yeah, bad news early is good news. So trying different things, but like, it's really important to utilize the companies like OTA Insights or whatever software you use. Like, I wouldn't be using a guessing game and depending on luck during a pandemic to fill your rooms. Like, prepare correctly, put your time in, use the data, and make good decisions.
Great. And Eric, that's revenue management. I guess, you touched upon it and you made a move to connect with OTA Insight, I guess, because of this.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how much is luck and how much of the old data we cannot rely on, but we are gathering new data and new insights in the situation we're in. And I think as long as we use it, we will have a way to make the most of it. But I just wanted to hang on to, because I see the word biases there. I'm personally really intrigued by behavioral psychology and how biases make us take unconscious decisions. And like that also relates to revenue management, I think. Like there's one bias called decision-making fatigue. And it basically means that when you're tired of making a lot of consecutive decisions, you're just gonna say, I don't want to make any decisions anymore. And so there's a really interesting research done where they had judges in the US, and in the morning, they were giving parole to almost every single prisoner. And then the closer to lunch that they got, no one was given parole anymore. Then the judges go to lunch, come back, feel energized, everyone gets parole, and then it goes down again. And then we looked at when is the best time to upsell. It's also the same, after lunch and early in the morning. So you should ask difficult decisions that require thinking early in the morning or after lunch. And there are many, many of these biases, like how should you price yourself, can be more successful if you think about which countries are your guests are coming from, how many upsell offers should you offer. All of these things are not necessarily what people think about when they think about revenue management, but it results in higher conversion rates, which results in revenue. So I think it can be part of it. And it's all about biases.
Yeah, 100%. That's really interesting. And I guess, you can also equate that to gut feeling. Gut feeling is often just a collection of our experiences that we can't articulate. We just act upon them, and we believe they're right. And it's not luck, it's not gut feeling, it's just the experience. And to translate that into systems that can do that for you, I think that's the biggest challenge that we have. If we go to the next question then, with the changes in guest patterns in the last 20 months, what's the best way to manage guest data going forward? Maybe we can start with Tobias again, because obviously you're handling guest data, and we mentioned earlier, if it's from the OTAs, it's difficult to get all of the data that you need. So do you have a point that you would like to make about this?
Well, I'm not sure if that's the best way, if there's a best way to manage guest data, but I can only encourage hoteliers to try to get the most important information from your guests, either their real email address or mobile number, and stay in touch with them. Give them a reason to sign up to your newsletter, to your, I don't know, WhatsApp newsletter. I don't know how you communicate with them, but yeah, to not have too many duplicates running around. And the time that we have at some points now in time, maybe the front office or whoever works at the moment takes this time to go through all those duplicates that might be in the system, and to make your head up where you want to store this, be it in the PMS, be it in the CRM or CRS, wherever you want to have it. But it should be clean data, and maybe run a campaign where you collect more data with some encouragement for the guest to give you this data that you need. So I think there's time in the moment to take care of that, to have a clean database, and maybe even get rid of some of those, yeah, I don't know how you want to call them, those bodies in there who will never come back, who maybe came here once, but maybe try to find some segments in your guest data that performed well. Maybe even with the help of suppliers who can help you with best practices, which worked for others. This would be my recommendation.
Okay, great. I guess it's also something that we talked about earlier, that you want to know about the footprint of your guests and collect the data there as well. And I guess that's been also accelerated by all the contactless journeys that we've been talking about in the last 6 to 12 months, where there was a real drive to get as much as possible online, so people didn't have those traditional touch points. Okay, if we move on to the next question. So how can we recognize guests approaching the desk associate now that facial recognition has become the devil's software in IT and the public eye? I'm going to leave this one open. Like, who would like to take this question?
I can have a go at it to the risk of answering something maybe a little bit odd, but I do think the underlying question, before I go back to the devil software, is a question of privacy and trust between the hospitality service providers, or the hotel, the residents, the resort, whatever, and the guests. We always need, and we've seen that more than ever, I think, in the past 18 to 20 months, the need to create that trust in different ways. We used to create the trust by greeting people properly and showing them around and giving them a sense of security in a property that they don't know, cleanliness and these kind of things. We still need to do that, but we also found out we need to build trust through hygiene reasons, through proper distancing of the colleagues, that they are trained, that they know what to do, and et cetera, et cetera. How do we move that trust beyond that and start implementing things like facial recognition, presumably through CCTV? This is a much bigger gap, and I do think something needs to happen in something needs to happen in the macro world that triggers the need to do it. Now, I don't think a majority of people will feel confident arriving at the front desk or at the restaurant and being greeted by their name, saying, "Oh yeah, how is room number 123, Mr. Alex today?" I'm like, yeah, what the hell do you know that, right? I will feel a little bit, okay, that's too much. However, it might happen. There might be reasons to do it. And again, vision, customer journeys, guest journey, etc. But I also think there are different ways to do it. If the hotel group uses an app and the guest has an app, maybe that trust element is a little bit heightened and we can recognize, oh, you have the device, you are a member of our thing. We kind of understand that you will expect us to recognize you. So I think this is a great question that has more to do with trust than technology. But there are ways to do it today, and I think the reason we don't do it is mostly because of the creepiness that it pulls in.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Before we wrap up, I think we do have time for this last question, and of course, I'm going to go to Dave from OTA Insight with regards to forecasts and how the market's moving.
Sure. I mean, I think at the market level, it's good to understand, which way it is trending, but I think it's really important to be able to, drill a layer deeper. I mean, for a lot of our hotel partners, just traditional comp sets, aren't enough, and, understanding traditional market drivers isn't enough. So being able to kind of slice and dice that a little bit to understand, what parts of a market are heating up, which ones are cooling down. Is it because an event was canceled or an event was brought back online? Those are really important. And that's not, that may not impact the entire market itself, or, in other cases it may, with a COVID restriction being lifted, for instance. So it's a lot of it's driven by the context around it. So I do think it's important to understand the total market condition, but I think the ability to drill down and then validate some of the assumptions you're going to make based on it, that's really critical today.